Ladies and gentlemen, we move on to our next keynote topic for the day, building great places to work for driving business success. And our keynote speaker is Mr. Manoj Chugh, ex-president Mahindra Group. Before I invite him onto the stage, we are just taking a minute before I invite him onto the stage. And ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Mr. Manoj Chugh, ex-president Mahindra Group, while I invite him to take on this keynote. Sir.
Right, a very, very good afternoon. How's everyone feeling today? How's the Josh? Very few guys are saying it's high. I know why very few guys are saying it's high. The good news is that lunch is only at 1:30, right? You guys have seen. The second thing is that the chefs are still not quite ready, so I have got a full hour with you, and after me there's yet another session. So now is the Josh still high? Still high, all right. Guys at the back, I don't know why you guys, and that's why I decided not to go on stage, right? Because I love the guys at the back, because I've always sat in the back. There's something charming, right, about sitting at the back. Now, when I was growing up, all the guys who sat at the back of the class did so because they could write their love letters without the professor actually calling out on them. So that used to be the favorite hobby. I know Mr. Khera in the morning spoke about the high suicide rates amongst IITians. You remember that, right? I looked at myself and said, thank God I survived. So guys, some of us do survive, and again, it's a great honor, great pleasure to be here. I've been a part of Infocom for many, many years. Every year I come, Khalida asks me to talk about technology, because that's what I've done all my life. Different facets, different ways in which technology can help mankind and so on and so forth. The good news is this time I am not talking about technology. I'm talking about how does one go about building great places to work so that we can drive business success? How many of us truly so in this room believe that our organizations are great places to be in to drive business success? Some of us are. Some of us have to put up our hands because you don't want to be caught on camera on social media and then your boss kind of seeing you not raise your hand. Right? Sometimes you just have to do that. That's political necessity. That's your survival instinct. You, sir, are raising both your hands, right? Because you want to make sure, yeah, boss, my appraisal is due next week. I love this place, right? And then you look at your appraisal rating, and then maybe you might have a different idea thereafter, right? I want to talk about real stories. I'm not here to talk about theoretical frameworks. And I'm actually going to share with you the lessons that I've learned in this beautiful city growing up. I started my career in Kolkata. I started my career by making sales calls on Khalida, who's right here. It was many, many decades ago. And I'm really blessed and fortunate to be here to tell you these stories. And the reason I wanted to tell you these stories is because these stories helped me lay my own foundation of driving success in my career. I've been very blessed and fortunate to have led 5 different businesses to very, very successful positions, to pole positions over the last 40 years. And I just thought that I must share with you the stories from my own career that I have learned working with my colleagues, working with my leaders. And Khalida, you're going to recognize some of the names. I'm not going to take those names today because they're all people from your past and my past, but who have really shaped thinking in terms of how do you build a great place to work so that you can drive business success. So all of you okay to listening to a few stories before lunch? All right? So no PowerPoint slides. Now, the reason why there are no PowerPoint slides is because my PowerPoint skills, as many of you know, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being lowest, 10 being highest, is 1. So, and by the way, it's not on my CV. Nowhere in my CV have I written that I know PowerPoint. So I've been very truthful. Mr. Khera spoke about high integrity and ethics, right? So always good to have your disclosures out there. My first story goes back to early days of the IT industry. That's where I started my career here. It was incredibly hard at that time to convince customers to invest in computerization because they felt that their manual systems were good enough. And they always feared the fact that if I went and installed a computer, I'm going to take away someone's job. And that was not necessarily something many business leaders were up to in those years. So therefore, winning every deal, getting every piece of business was incredibly tough. Now, sometimes, luck favors the brave. There was this big opportunity in this market here where one of the very large groups had decided to go in for not one or two computer systems, but they had decided to go in for 5 such systems. Now, 5 systems at that time meant that you actually achieved the target for your entire office for the year. So that means you just win one transaction and you're going to be incredibly successful. That means everything hinged on that one transaction for the year. One of our senior colleagues was actually pursuing that opportunity. And for many months, things went pretty well. I mean, we felt that we were on a cruise, we had a great opportunity, we got all the nods, we were checking all the boxes, and it seemed that we would have a great year. Now, our boss at that time, air conditioning wasn't there in offices, would come in the morning every day, and he had this habit of opening the windows of the office. So he would come in the morning, open every window one by one by one by one. And he came in earlier than everyone because he said that by that time, hopefully the office would have cooled down. So it was very nice and gracious of him. He was a great leader. And one fine day when he was opening these windows, the sales guy who was responsible for this transaction came in totally distraught. And we all looked at him and we knew something was not right. He has not slept through the night. Very, very disturbed. Face was red. Looked like he had got high blood pressure. Now here's a guy in the 20s, not looking healthy at all. And we didn't, ask him as to what was wrong. He just came, he sat down, he was grumpy, half teary, almost choking when we were trying to talk to him. And then after a few minutes, he picked up courage, went up to our manager who was opening the windows and said that, "Sir, I have some news to share with you." Our manager looked at him and said, "Yes, Mr. Banerjee, what is it that you want to tell me this morning?" He said, "Sir, I've got terrible news. I just heard last evening that we had lost the transaction." Now, we all overheard this, and there was deathly silence. Because, for all of us, our hearts were in our mouths saying, "Gosh, God knows what's going to happen to us." We all thought that our boss is now going to unleash a barrage of kishtis. Because that's only human. And we said, he's going to blow up his top and all of us are now going to have a real rough time for the rest of the year. You know what our manager did? He continued to open the windows as if nothing had happened. And there was silence for a few minutes. And then he called my colleague up and said, "Mr. Banerjee, can you come up to the window, please?" My colleague got up. He was half worried that maybe the boss might just throw him out from the window physically. He said, "Mr. Banerjee, can you look up at the sky?" My colleague looked up at the sky. And he said, "I see that the sky is still there." That's all he said. He said, "The sky is still there. It has not fallen." He patted him on the back and said, "Let's move on to the next transaction." He never, ever, ever called this colleague as a failure. Never in our meetings did he say, oh, look at this idiot, he let the whole team down, etc., etc. And that was my first big lesson, that the fundamental pillar that you have to erect when you build a business and you build a great place to work is that of trust. If you do not build trust, you are never going to have a successful organization. And what is trust? Trust is about being open. Trust is about being transparent. Trust is about the reality of just accepting that everyone is doing their best. Actions are right. Sometimes the outcomes may not be what you want. And individuals recognize that if their organizations trust them, what are they going to see? When their organizations trust them, they're going to be open, they're going to be transparent, and they're going to have a huge opportunity to create value. When we create trust, employees are loyal. When we create trust, they will do everything to make sure that the organization succeeds. You agree with me or not? I'm not going to talk about theoretical frameworks on trust. I'm not a professor, and neither are any of you going to take any exams in HR. Am I right? Anyone taking any exams in HR? Nobody, right? So we talk about reality. So that was my first important lesson. Did you like my story or no? You like the story? Which year was this? Khalida and I will go back in history. It was in the early 80s. I'll talk about now my second story. I've got a few stories, right? Till the bell rings, I'm going to keep telling you stories, right? My second story is about the time that I was getting transferred from Kolkata to Delhi. It was a very interesting time. I got my transfer orders at the middle of the year. And that was a great year for me. Performance was fantastic. And I was so very pleased that I was getting transferred middle of the year because I thought when I go to the new place, you know what's going to happen? I'll have enough luxury to settle down because my performance has already been done for the year. Right? So I said, great, I'm going to enjoy 6 months. I have performed well. And I was smug, just waiting to get on the train to go to Delhi. 2 days before I was to finally leave Kolkata, my manager called me into my room. And he said, Manoj, I want to discuss one thing with you. I know that you're on your way and you've done incredibly well. Congratulations, etc., etc. But he said, there is another colleague of ours who you know, who's a very dear friend, who you may not know because he has confidentially told me that he's going through a very significant personal crisis. And you know that this has not been a great year and he has not performed. So what I want you to do is, take half of what you have achieved and hand it over to him. I told my boss, you must be mad. I worked so hard, incredibly hard, and now you just want to give away half of whatever I have made to my colleague who I know well. He's a great friend of mine, but you just want me to go give it to him? Pray, why would I do that? He said, listen, when you leave, your customers are going to be here. Your customers need to be taken care of. Don't you like your customers? Don't you love your customers? Don't you want your customers to be cared for? I said, of course I want my customers to be cared for. He said, he will do it. But it's only fair that you share the credit with him. I had a long argument with my manager, but he just refused to budge. Finally, I relented. Now, when I relented, frankly, somewhere in my heart, I also felt good that I had had this opportunity of at least doing a good deed. And I felt that it would be good for my soul that I did it. Maybe I was trying to reconcile in my mind. Maybe I was trying to console myself. But that's what happened. Moving on, I moved to my new territory. When I moved to my new territory, now what happened was that all the guys knew now this guy is coming on transfer. So you know what happens when somebody comes on transfer from another location? All the guys in that location say, whatever are the juicy parts of the business, let's keep with us. Ye naya jo aa raha hai, right? Bakra. Let him keep the crumbs. And that's exactly what happened with me. So I got the worst of everything. I landed in a territory and I went and asked my manager, how much business have we done in this territory over the last 5, 7, 8 years? That's how long the business had been. And he said, Manoj, you're a sales guy, don't you know? Of course it is zero. Do you think anyone is going to give you something that they've worked on? Nobody ever gives anyone a territory they've worked on. I said, fine, I'm going to take it on, I'll do my best. It's a long, long story, but the short of it is, by the time the year ended, I had more than exceeded my number for the full year in this territory in just a few months. Now, who had come and rewarded me? It was a territory where we had never ever done business. Everyone said you can't do a penny's worth of business. The universe rewarded me. Because somewhere, someone was watching and said, I think this guy is doing something right. And my second big lesson, which I learned, and that is the second pillar that I'm going to talk about in this story, is that of well-being. It is incredibly important to make sure that in your organization, you absolutely promise that the well-being of every individual is going to get taken care of. My colleague was going through a crisis. Our manager stepped in, looked after his well-being and said, Manoj is getting transferred. I'm going to give something to you. Make sure you look after his customers. That's the promise you need to make him, right? So that his customers don't feel that they are not getting cared for. And my colleague did a phenomenal job, a much better job than I would have done to take care of those customers. When I moved into my new territory, we were able to create significant new business which we were never able to do as a firm. There is a direct correlation, and believe me, I've seen it happening time after time after time in every business that I've taken to a position of leadership, that there is a direct correlation between well-being and financial performance. Absolutely direct. And never has this formula gone wrong. So that has been my second lesson. Well-being means you look after emotional, physical, mental, happiness and health of the individual. You care for the individual. You give feedback to the individual. You nurture that individual. You recognize that individual. You celebrate that individual. And that is how you will build a great place to work. My third story and my last story, because I have very little time now, is another very interesting story. This is about a customer crisis. Now, we had a customer who was in Ranchi, very large manufacturing customer, who had several thousand employees. And many of you might know, right? Computer glitches happen when you least want them to. Unfortunately so. But that's the reality. If something has to go wrong, it will. And Kalida will agree with me. 24 hours before the payroll was to be disbursed, system broke down. Now here you have to disburse the salary and the pay slips for thousands of workers, and your system has gone down. Now the management was very jittery because you know what happens, right? If your pay slips are not given, you got thousands of blue-collar workers. What do you think is going to happen? There's going to be strike, there's going to be unrest, there is going to be manufacturing impact, that's going to have a direct result, impact on your top line and bottom line, and who the hell is going to answer? Now imagine if you were the IT manager. What's going to be your state? What's going to be your state? Panic with a capital P. So this person was like any of us. The CIO panicked. And what did he do when he panicked? Called the vendor and said, my system is down. I need to have my payslip. I called in the afternoon. But first he was trying himself, reboot this, that, load tape, blah, 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 tried everything. Nothing worked. So this interesting thing in the afternoon, then he called us and said, guys, bad news for you. I need my payslips tomorrow morning. We said, what time do you hand over your pay slips? He says, pay slips we give at 10 a.m. So by 10 a.m., all my pay slips have to be given, and if I don't, then they're going to slaughter me for sure. Nobody is going to leave because everyone knows computer systems down, this is the guy, we'll not leave him. So we said, look, don't panic. You get your attendance data, take the next flight from Ranchi and come to Kolkata. And he said, fine, I will do that, but then, one day I'll have to come back to Ranchi, my family is here. I said, we're not running away. We have got a small demo systems in our office. We will run your payroll on the demo system. And he said, you guys must be crazy. It's like flying from Kolkata to New York in a gnat. And he said, how the hell are you going to make it happen? We said, you don't worry. You get your attendance data. Just have the courage. We are there. Take the flight and just come. And we said, the other thing we are going to do is we're going to send our engineer with the spare part to get your system up. So we'll do two parallel things because we can't take a chance. Customer had no option. Poor chap, took the attendance data, got one of his associates with him, flew down. My boss was at the airport to receive him because he knew that this individual was in a state of panic. And you know what he did with him? Many, many lessons to learn from this beautiful city. He didn't just pick him up and get him to the office. He took him home. He told him, you have a shower. Didn't take him to a hotel, took him home. Said, have a shower. His wife cooked a hot meal. He said, you first sit and let's have dinner at home. By that time, the blood pressure, temperature, everything was starting to normalize. In the meantime, we had told everyone in our office that you guys better land back to office, you're not going home. Right? We got an emergency. So all the guys from the field landed back in the office. The customer came after dinner. We were all there. We took turns through the night to enter data because we had to enter raw data. We just had raw attendance data. Ran the application. By 5 in the morning, the payslips were done. And the customer flew back by the first flight out. In the meantime, the engineer had repaired the system. So we told the customer, all your other MIS reports, management, there's that, you can go do on your own system. It is working now. And it was business as usual. Nobody in the organization got to know that such a crisis had happened. And this taught me the other two important lessons, the other two key pillars which build the house of a great place to work. And these two pillars are collaboration and customer service. I spoke about trust, I spoke about well-being, and the other two lessons are collaboration and customer success. Now, why do I talk about collaboration? I work with many organizations, I advise them. And I find that whether they're small organizations or very large organizations, people don't talk to each other. There is no collaboration. Nobody is getting together to solve problems. Do you find that happening in your organization? I can go into any organization and go and do an X-ray and clearly it will be visible. One function is not talking to the other. One team is not talking to the other. People sitting in the same office in the aisle on two sides are not talking to each other. And it amazes me. You would tend to think, oh, there is a startup, they collaborate very well. No, same story. You walk into a large organization, it's the same story. And many organizations are not able to deliver to their full potential just because of poor collaboration quotient. Believe me, it is so simple to drive success if you can get everyone to solve problems together. If you can drive inclusivity, if you can accept diversity, if you can accept alternate ideas, and if you can celebrate them to solve very complex problems, it is not that hard. You all agree with me? And I'm sure that each one of you, if you look in your own organization, I have asked so many people, right? What is your strategy? The discussion we just saw on purpose. What is the purpose of your organization? Do you know the purpose? Do you know why you exist? Do you know why your business is in the business that you are in? What are you trying to solve? What are you trying to solve? Most people don't know. That's why you go ask our CEO. Many people that I talk to, and I ask them that you come into office every day, you work very hard. How does this connect to what your organization is trying to do? Their larger purpose, their larger goal. People ask me, what is purpose? Purpose is the reason of your existence. Why do you exist? As an individual. And we heard a beautiful, beautiful session just now. And so therefore, if you collaborate, at least you'll get to know that you're working towards a common goal which is going to help your organization achieve its ulterior purpose. The ulterior reason as to why they exist. And believe me, organizations don't exist just to make money, right? You all agree with me, no? All the money and all the profits you make as an organization, do you dig a hole and put the money in that hole? Anyone does it here? What do? You invest, you create wealth, it goes back, you create jobs, it helps the economy. It helps the planet. Hopefully we do it the right way. Customer service. Many of us, in fact, in my early years, people used to say, Manoj, a customer, no. The word is very well defined. I said, why? It says, begins with C-U-S-T. Kasht. Ye customer. I remember when I used to go to the bank in the early days. Now, of course, you have ATMs, this, that. The moment you go in the morning, I don't know how many of you have ever done that. 10 a.m., walk into a branch. No one wants to talk to you. No one wants to see you. No one is at the teller. You walk up to somebody, वो एक दूसरे को बोल रहे हैं, यार मुसीबत आ गई तू झेल, मुसीबत आ गई तू झेल. And you're a customer, you're standing there. You're मुसीबत. Arey Baba, you exist because of me. No. 10 a.m. too early in the morning. या सुबह सुबह बीबी से लड़के घर यहाँ आ गया, बीबी ने यहाँ भेज दिया इसको. That used to be the common refrain. That you're fought at home, your wife has got upset, you have no place to go, you've come to the bank. So who the hell wants to deal with you? We all need to recognize that customer success satisfaction is critical to long-term health. And why is that important? Because number one, not only does the customer help you make your profit that you've made off a transaction, but importantly helps you to continue to improve and become better as an organization, as an individual. I don't know how many of you will agree with me. Many people turn around and say, oh, that guy had great vision, fantastic strategy, created a wonderful business. And I often used to tell them, that is the marketing guy has to tell the story, you know, wo, jaise Hindi movie. Once you see last scene, you have to build the rest. I said, actually, his customer pulled him by the ear and told him what to do and what not to do. And many times you don't understand what your customer is saying, then the customer also slaps you 3-4 times, you know. It's called kind love, tough love. That's what you get. And then you learn, then you realize, then you embrace an idea, and the idea becomes successful, and then what happens? 20 years later, you are this great visionary. You saw this great vision that nobody had seen. It's your customer who saw that vision. Customer insight is critical. And only those customers are going to do it where you have built that relationship over a period of time. To begin with, you need to deliver superior products and services. You need to make sure you truly partner with your customer. And not only that, good customers give you referrals, right? Many people come and ask me, Manoj, my sales guys, they don't know where to go and sell. I said, nobody has a magic wand. Just go to your existing customers and ask them if they are happy with you to refer to other friends. See, the problem hai. Many of my customers' implementations are not done well. So you're not going to get a referral. So customer service, do everything for the customer. And I'm at the end of this. That was my last story. If you have time, I got lots of more stories, but I just picked 3 of them. And I think that these are the 4 important pillars: trust, well-being, collaboration, customer service. If you can put these 4 pillars together, you have a very, very successful business. And I'd like to wish all of you every success. This city has taught me these lessons. These were the 4 lessons that I learned here. These were the only 4 lessons which took me very, very far in my own career. And Mr. Khera spoke about failures. I took 5 businesses, didn't fail in a single one, because I learned these lessons right here. And thank you very much for your love and affection.
Thank you very much, sir. May I request Mr. Didi Purkar, the Director, AVP Group, to kindly come forward and present a memento to Mr. Manoj Chugh. Thank you, sir.